Tensions across Europe have reached a new peak as NATO leaders convene an emergency meeting to discuss a rapidly deteriorating security environment on the continent. A series of recent military incidents, diplomatic strains, and provocative actions have forced the alliance into action, stressing the immediate need for a coordinated strategy to deal with widening security threats. Europe now finds itself on high alert, as political leaders from Brussels to Berlin, Warsaw to Paris, grapple with a crisis that may define international relations for years to come. At the heart of this emergency summit are several alarming developments that have shaken NATO's confidence and heightened concerns among its member states. Over recent months, incidents involving violations of airspace, increased drone operations, and provocative maneuvers by Russian forces have underscored the fragility of European security. In one of the most serious events, a wave of Russian drones violated Polish airspace, prompting a live defensive response and the activation of NATO air defense systems. These violations were not isolated, but part of a string of incidents that have caused alarm among alliance members and pushed diplomats to seek urgent consultations. The meeting brings together the foreign ministers and defense chiefs of NATO countries, along with representatives from key partners across Europe, each expressing deep concern over the strategic landscape. For nations on the alliance's eastern flank, especially those bordering Russia and Ukraine, the stakes could not be higher. Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and other Baltic states have repeatedly voiced the need for a robust and unified NATO response to what they describe as escalating provocations. They argue that the alliance must demonstrate strength and resolve to deter further attempts to breach sovereign borders or test defensive commitments. Inside the emergency discussions, a central topic revolves around airspace violations and how NATO should respond. The alliance has already warned that any unauthorized incursions by Russian military aircraft or drones will be met with decisive action, including the potential for fighter jets to intercept or even shoot down intruding aircraft, if necessary. This stance represents a firm shift in NATO's posture, signaling its willingness to defend member states' airspace with force, if required. For many diplomats, this is not an empty threat. Defense capabilities have been visibly bolstered with increased patrols, integrated air defense systems, and heightened readiness levels across multiple borders. The sense of urgency at the meeting is driven in part by the complexity of modern warfare and the evolving role of unmanned systems. Drones have become a prominent element in recent confrontations, used not just for reconnaissance, but increasingly for offensive operations. Their appearance near NATO airspace has forced military planners to rethink conventional defense models, integrating new detection and response mechanisms to account for this technological shift. Many NATO officials describe this change as a wake-up call, one that highlights how hybrid threats and rapid technological advances have transformed the battlefield. But the emergency summit is not only about military readiness. Diplomatic strategy is equally central to the discussions. Across the alliance, leaders are aware that confrontations with Russia could spiral if not managed carefully. While some member states, particularly those at greatest geographic risk, urge a strong, unified response, others push for diplomacy and coordinated talks to de-escalate tensions. This division in approach reflects the broader uncertainty within Europe. How to balance deterrence with diplomacy in a way that maintains stability without emboldening aggressive actions. Behind the closed doors of the NATO summit, intense negotiations are underway. Some countries emphasize the need for stronger sanctions, joint military exercises, and a review of defense spending commitments. Others caution against measures that might be perceived as overly aggressive, stressing the importance of maintaining open channels for negotiation with Moscow. This balancing act is delicate. One wrong step could inflame an already volatile situation and risk broader conflict. Poland's foreign minister has taken a particularly active role in pushing for urgent discussions, calling on regional partners to coordinate closely on security matters. In the days preceding the NATO meeting, Poland hosted its own emergency talks with neighboring states to explore joint strategies and reinforce collective defense commitments. These regional efforts highlight the growing sense of urgency among European capitals, who see NATO's unity as essential to avoiding further destabilization. The gravity of the situation is compounded by ongoing large-scale military operations near the borders of Ukraine, where intense bombardments and missile strikes have drawn both concern and condemnation from NATO members. One recent cascade of drone and missile attacks against Ukrainian cities triggered heightened alert in nearby NATO states, leading to the scrambling of fighter jets and further reinforcing how quickly local military actions can have broader strategic ramifications. These events have underscored how interconnected the security of Ukraine and NATO members has become a reality that European leaders confront at this emergency summit. Meanwhile, the United States, a core member of NATO, has reiterated its commitment to the alliance, emphasizing that collective defense remains non-negotiable. Washington's representatives at the meeting have stressed that the US stands firmly behind its European partners, promising increased support in terms of intelligence sharing, military aid, and coordinated defense planning. For many European officials, this reassurance from the United States is vital, offering a sense of solidarity in the face of mounting threats. Yet not all responses are uniform. Within the alliance, differing perspectives on how to handle Russia's actions have emerged. Some member states push for more aggressive countermeasures, while others advocate caution, fearing that escalation could precipitate a wider confrontation. This divergence feeds into a larger debate across Europe about the future of NATO, the role of the United States in regional security, and how Europe must adapt to a world where conventional and unconventional threats increasingly intersect. As the emergency meeting progresses, one key theme persists: the need for clarity. Allies seek clear rules of engagement, transparent communication channels, and concrete plans for both defense and diplomacy. NATO's leadership is keenly aware that uncertainty only fuels instability. Clear policies, defined thresholds for responses, and a unified posture may help deter further provocations and reassure citizens across the continent that their governments are prepared to protect them, even as military planners refine defense strategies. Diplomats stress the need for de-escalation efforts, back-channel talks, confidence-building measures, and multilateral dialogues are seen as important tools to reduce the risk of misunderstandings that could ignite broader conflict. European leaders frequently emphasize that maintaining open lines of communication with Russia, even in times of severe tension, is crucial to reduce the likelihood of accidental confrontation. Public perception also plays a significant role. The emergency meeting has captured global attention, with news outlets and social media platforms amplifying every statement and reaction. Citizens across Europe watch anxiously as leaders negotiate solutions, aware that the outcome could affect national security, economic stability, and the future of peace on the continent. This heightened attention places additional pressure on policymakers, who must consider not only strategic imperatives, but also public sentiment and the demand for decisive action. In the midst of these high-stakes discussions, the emergency NATO meeting stands as a pivotal moment. It reflects the alliance's attempt to navigate a complex and rapidly changing security landscape, one where traditional military boundaries are blurred by new technologies, regional conflicts spill over into broader strategic concerns, and diplomacy struggles to keep pace with fast-moving developments. Europe's high-alert status is a stark reminder that the threat environment is evolving, and that even established institutions like NATO must adapt quickly to face emerging challenges. But this meeting is more than a response to immediate threats. It is a test of unity, resolve, and strategic foresight. Allies must determine whether they can present a cohesive front in the face of uncertainty, and whether their collective actions will deter further aggression or inadvertently escalate tensions. The decisions made in these emergency sessions are likely to reverberate well beyond the halls of NATO headquarters, shaping not only Europe's security posture, but also the future trajectory of international geopolitics. As hours pass inside NATO headquarters, the meeting rooms fill with a sense of urgency that grows heavier with every new update. The delegates who arrived earlier with structured talking points now sit forward in their seats, studying fresh intelligence that paints a complicated and rapidly shifting security landscape. Analysts present satellite footage, communication logs, and detailed assessments that show unusual movements in several regions. None of the developments individually point to direct danger, but together they create a pattern that NATO cannot ignore. Military experts explain that in today's world, situations do not escalate only through large-scale actions. Instead, they often begin with small, hard to interpret signals, unusual drone routes, unexpected naval activity, increased communication traffic, or sudden shifts in transport patterns. These signs may simply reflect routine exercises, but they could also be early indicators of coordinated pressure. The difficulty lies in distinguishing between the two. This uncertainty is what presses on the minds of the commanders briefing the alliance. Within the main conference hall, discussions shift toward the issue of preparedness. Nations situated closer to the eastern regions express strong concern about timing. Their representatives emphasize that reactions must be swift, organized, and clearly communicated to avoid any misunderstandings. Their urge for enhanced air monitoring, stronger rotational deployments, and quicker sharing of intelligence among member states. These countries explain that even brief moments of hesitation could create opportunities for misinterpretation. Other nations agree with the need for readiness, but remind the room of the logistical and political complexities involved. Moving defensive systems, coordinating multiple armies, and adjusting national budgets all require careful management. No country wants to appear overly aggressive, yet none want to risk appearing unprepared. It's a delicate balance, and every decision must consider both regional and global reactions. Despite varying positions, a shared understanding begins to form. Europe is facing a period of transitions unlike anything seen in recent years. Geopolitical tensions, changing alliances, and new methods of conflict have created a global environment where the line between safety and uncertainty is thin. This realization pushes NATO to think beyond traditional strategies. The alliance must now prepare for challenges that may come not only from land, sea, or air, but from cyberspace, digital misinformation, and technologies that can cause disruption without ever crossing a physical border. Much of Part 2 focuses on these new domains, especially cybersecurity. Intelligence teams brief delegates about increased digital probing attempts, targeting communication systems, transportation infrastructure, and government platforms across Europe. Although none of the attempts succeeded in causing damage, their frequency and precision raise concerns. Cybersecurity specialists explain that such attempts often serve as tests, efforts to map vulnerabilities, identify weak points, and gather data that may be used later. These warnings highlight how modern conflicts can start silently. A disrupted network or a compromised communication system can cause confusion and uncertainty. Long before any physical action occurs, NATO members agree that strengthening cybersecurity is no longer optional. It must become a central pillar of collective defense. This includes joint cyber exercises, upgraded digital firewalls, and rapid response teams that can provide assistance across borders when needed. At the same time, misinformation campaigns become another major point of discussion. Several member states report coordinated online narratives aimed at creating social division, weakening public trust, and amplifying doubts about institutions. Analysts explain that these campaigns are designed not to change decisions directly, but to destabilize society slowly over time. They tend to appear during moments of heightened tension, which makes the current spike especially concerning. Diplomats argue that countering misinformation requires more than technical tools. It demands unified communication strategies, transparent updates, and public education. As one delegate notes, security today is not only about protecting borders, it is also about protecting truth. While these emerging threats receive significant attention, traditional defense still plays a critical role in the discussions. Behind closed doors, military planners refine strategies that may be needed if unusual activity continues. These include aerial patrol routes, naval coordination in sensitive waters, rapid deployment plans, and airspace management protocols. Each scenario is analyzed carefully, not because conflict is expected, but because preparedness reduces the risk of misunderstandings. Across Europe, the public follows the situation closely. News channels broadcast updates, analysts offer interpretations, and families discuss the developments with growing interest. Governments maintain steady communication, encouraging calm but acknowledging that security agencies are taking precautionary measures. Schools, transportation authorities, and public institutions review emergency procedures, not because danger is imminent, but because readiness is responsible. Financial markets also respond. Investors watch geopolitical developments closely, causing fluctuations in energy prices and shifts in currency values. Economists remind the public that markets react quickly to uncertainty, even when actual conditions remain stable. The interconnected nature of global finance means that events in one part of the world can influence trading floors continents away. Meanwhile, international observers across Asia, the Middle East, and the Americas monitor NATO's emergency meeting. Many see it as a test of the alliance's unity and adaptability. Some governments analyze whether the situation will shape future diplomatic or military engagements. Others focus on how it might affect energy markets, trade routes, and regional stability. This global attention adds an additional layer of responsibility to NATO's ongoing discussions. Inside the summit, a growing number of delegates push for stronger intelligence sharing agreements. They argue that rapid communication between member states is essential for avoiding miscalculations. The better coordination of aerial tracking, cyber alerts, troop movements, and maritime observations can help ensure that all members understand the situation clearly and consistently. Several nations support the proposal, noting that modern threats develop too quickly for outdated information sharing systems. As discussions progress, diplomats emphasize that even in tense periods, communication channels with other global actors remain important. Diplomatic engagement can reduce misunderstandings and provide opportunities to prevent unnecessary tensions. Though not all delegates share the same optimism about dialogue, most agree that communication plays a key role in maintaining stability. By the end of Part 2, the alliance reaches a point where preparation, unity, and cooperation are emphasized. More strongly than ever, delegates recognize that Europe's security depends on adaptability, both in technology and diplomacy. The meeting continues with determination as leaders prepare to enter the final phase of discussions. As the emergency summit enters its final stretch, the mood inside NATO headquarters shifts from debate to decision-making. Delegates realize that the conclusions they shape in these last hours will influence Europe's direction for months, perhaps years. The latest intelligence briefings, presented by senior analysts, reinforce the seriousness of the moment. They show continued unusual patterns across various regions, not alarming on their own, but concerning when viewed together. These developments act as reminders that uncertainty still hangs over Europe's security environment. Military commanders present updates on aerial monitoring and maritime tracking, noting increased activity in several areas. While none of the movements violate international protocols, the timing and coordination make them worthy of close observation. Commanders explain that such patterns often serve as ways to measure response times or test surveillance systems. Delegates nod, understanding that awareness is crucial, even when events remain within legal boundaries. The discussion then shifts toward air defense readiness. Several nations highlight the importance of strengthening aerial surveillance, ensuring that radar systems, patrol routes, and contingency plans are synchronized across member states. They argue that consistent monitoring reduces the risk of misunderstandings, especially during periods of heightened tension. Defense officials emphasize that improving airspace awareness is not about anticipating conflict. It is about ensuring clarity, confidence, and stability. Cybersecurity once again becomes a major point of focus. Technical advisors update delegates on recent digital probes targeting European systems. While these attempts were small and swiftly contained, their frequency and precision indicate growing sophistication. Cyber experts remind the alliance that cyber risks evolve quickly, often without warning. A minor vulnerability today could become a larger issue tomorrow, if not addressed collectively. This prompts several countries to push for expanded joint cyber exercises and unified digital defense protocols. Delegates also discuss the influence of misinformation campaigns. Analysts explain that several online narratives have appeared in recent weeks, aimed at creating confusion, questioning official statements, and amplifying internal divisions within societies. These narratives often spread through subtle methods, making them difficult to track. Despite their quiet nature, their long-term effects can weaken public trust. Leaders agree that consistent communication, both domestically and across the alliance, is essential to countering these. Efforts start as the meeting progresses. The conversation gradually shifts toward long-term strategy. The delegates recognize that NATO's responsibilities have grown more complex than ever before. Traditional defense remains central, but modern challenges require an expanded approach, one that includes technological resilience, and strong diplomatic coordination. Several nations propose enhancing joint training exercises to improve operational harmony. These exercises, they argue, help identify logistical gaps and build trust among forces that may need to work together at short notice. Others suggest establishing more rapid response units capable of handling cyber incidents, airspace irregularities, and maritime developments. There is broad agreement that adaptability must become one of NATO's guiding principles. Inside the final closed-door session, delegates turned their attention to the issue of communication channels with nations outside the alliance. Diplomats stress that even in tense times, open lines of communication reduce the chances of misinterpreted actions. History has shown that misunderstandings can escalate situations unnecessarily. Maintaining dialogue, therefore, becomes a vital component of long-term stability. While some delegates express caution about how these conversations should be handled, most agree that communication is a strategic necessity, not a concession. Public reaction across Europe remains steady but alert. Citizens follow updates through reliable news sources, discussions among analysts, and statements from their governments. Some countries raise internal preparedness levels as a precautionary measure. Schools, public services, and transportation networks conduct routine security reviews. These actions are part of normal readiness procedures, but during tense periods, they gain increased attention. Governments reassure their populations that these steps are preventive and standard, not indicators of immediate risk. Financial markets continue to react to global discussions, with fluctuations in certain commodities and currencies. The economists explained that markets often respond quickly to geopolitical developments, even when physical conditions remain stable. Fuel prices experience mild shifts, and investors adjust positions based on analyses of future trends. While these market movements are not unusual, they show how interconnected global systems have become. Beyond Europe, several global powers pay close attention to the outcomes of the emergency meeting. Some countries see it as an indicator of how NATO intends to balance readiness and diplomacy. Others evaluate how the alliance's decisions may influence global partnerships, trade routes, or regional dynamics. This worldwide attention underscores the influence NATO still holds in shaping global stability. During the final phase of the summit, a working group begins drafting the official communiqué. The delegates choose their words carefully, aware that every phrase will be examined internationally. Early reports suggest that the document will emphasize the alliance's unity, increased attention to cybersecurity, strengthened air and maritime monitoring, and improved intelligence coordination. It will also reaffirm the importance of diplomatic communication, signaling that NATO remains committed to stability through cooperation and dialogue. After hours of detailed negotiation, the communiqué is completed. As copies circulate among delegates for final approval, a sense of resolve spreads across the room. Leaders understand that while the emergency meeting is concluding, the work ahead has only begun. Implementing new protocols, improving coordination, and maintaining consistent communication will require sustained effort. When the summit's results are made public, the reaction is immediate. International news outlets cover the announcements, analysts share insights, and governments respond with statements of support or caution. Yet beneath all the commentary, one message stands out clearly. NATO is taking proactive steps to navigate an increasingly unpredictable global environment. As delegations exit the headquarters, journalists crowd the sidewalks, hoping for brief comments or insights. Some leaders offer short, confident statements about unity and preparation. Others maintain discretion, emphasizing that details will be released through official channels. Security escorts guide delegations through the busy streets as Brussels gradually transitions back to its normal pace. However, inside command centers across Europe, the activity continues. Air monitoring units analyze revised protocols. Cybersecurity teams implement new defensive measures. Maritime operations centers update patrol schedules. Officials coordinate with allied nations to ensure every part of the new security framework is aligned. The emergency meeting may be over, but the responsibility of maintaining readiness continues without interruption. Late into the night, lights remain on inside NATO offices as analysts review incoming reports. The atmosphere is calm, but focused. Everyone understands that the days ahead require careful monitoring and consistent communication. Stability depends not only on military strength, but on awareness, cooperation, and clear decision-making. As Europe watches closely, one reality becomes clear: the alliance stands united, alert, and prepared to protect the stability that millions depend on. The coming months may bring challenges, but NATO enters this new chapter with renewed determination, stronger coordination, and a shared commitment to preserving peace in a complex world.